Hi, my name's Peter Shields, and on behalf of iNet Scientific, I'm very pleased to welcome you all to today's webinar, iNet Now, New Live Monitoring Tools for Gas Detection. With rapid advancements in the gas detection market, it's great to have Lisa Mork Davis, Director of Advanced Safety Solutions from Industrial Scientific Corporation, to present on this exciting new innovation. Lisa has over 20 years of gas detection experience, and Industrial Scientific is at the forefront of developments in this area. I'm sure you'll find her presentation extremely interesting. Over to you now, Lisa.
Good morning to y'all. It's great to be here. So I'm coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona in the United States, and it is approximately 5:32 here. So it's my evening, but it's my pleasure to be here today with you all. So looking forward to spending a few minutes in the next 45 minutes or so to go over with you some of our new advancements that we've been working on, and we're delighted to be here. And thank you to you, Peter, and the AirMet team as well to help to put this together. So just to get started, just kind of go through. So what I want to do is I'll focus on today's topic is really about live gas detection. We call it live monitoring. So why would we want to, why is that important? Why is it important to you as a customer and to a safety officer or safety manager? Why is that important? So we're going to talk about some of the pathways that we can get to live gas detection for live monitoring. We'll talk about some of our new software that we just recently introduced in mid-September, and then also some other important things to consider. And as Peter said, please let us know if you have some questions. I'd be happy to answer them at the end. So just to take a moment, I always like to kick this off. This may get redundant to those that have seen my presentations, but I don't think it's bad to just revisit our vision and our mission statement. And the reason why is that this really ties into what we're doing today, an important topic about live gas detection. So our vision is to eliminate death on the job by the year 2050. And that actually was accelerated about 6 months ago. So when I spoke with you last, I think it was by the end of the century. So actually accelerated that to the year 2050. And so a couple of reasons why. I think with today's technology, as you know, just in your own personal life, in your home life, in your work life, you'll just see things accelerating with technology, software, and things like that. So we think that through data, through other means that we'll talk about today, we think that we can achieve this goal and get there faster. So we talk about this theme a lot, and you'll see it a lot in our marketing materials about being ready for the moment. So that's sort of something that we're going to talk about today as well. Okay, so some questions that you may have. So if you think about a couple things. How do you know where your workers are at any moment of the day? So if you're a facility, do you know when your workers clock in, when they clock out, and where they're at working throughout the day? Are they working remote? Are they working in a facility, in a plant, in different environments? We know. So how do you know where they're at, and how do you know that they're being kept safe? Are they wearing their gas detectors and their PPE? How do we know that they're being kept safe and hopefully go home at the end of the day? And finally, what would happen if there was an incident? So if there was an unfortunate incident, maybe they fell, maybe they even twisted their ankle, or even their car broke down if they're working remotely. So all sorts of things that could happen when we start to talk about even remote workers. So all of these kind of questions that keep in mind that may help sort of kind of frame what we're going to talk about here today. So as I mentioned in the overview, we're going to talk about live monitoring. So really that is live gas detection monitoring is what we're talking about here. So a couple things that involves knowing who, where, when, and what is happening in regards to that worker and their safety in terms of gas detection. But also not only gas detection, but there's ways to communicate other hazard data as well. So for instance, we can detect an incident if they're a man down type of a person down situation. Also, if there's a panic button, perhaps they have fallen and twisted their ankle, or they're in a remote area, they need help. A panic button on our instruments can also send a signal as well. So not only gas detection, but other hazard data. Accessing on control panels, mobile devices, etc. So just having that information at your fingertips at any point at any time of the day. So understanding where your worker's at and what status they're in at that time. And of course, what do we do when there is a situation? If something were to occur, how do you react? How are you to respond? And how would you even know to respond? So getting information at your fingertips, maybe if it's a text or an email, or just being able to log into a screen to determine where your workers are at and then what their conditions are at is important. So that's what we kind of encompass what is live monitoring. So why would we even use it? So kind of may seem simple enough, but it could take, simply, it could take hours, it could take days, even in an emergency situation, minutes, right? Minutes could make the difference between life or death as well. So we know that we talk about that moment. That moment is that 0.001% of the time when you need that gas detector to give you that critical data to make a life or death decision. We know that we also can get better safety outcomes or a safer workplace or keep our workers safer if you are closer to that moment. So what I mean by that is getting that data in the real time in that moment will help you make decisions and help your workers make decisions. So, it's great, to know some historical data. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well to understand, what's happened with your gas detection fleet last week, last month, to do some trend analysis, perhaps to do some figuring out, where the hazards may be, maybe if there's a leak or something that's happening in that environment. But again, why not now move that to the moment where we can actually start to think about making critical decisions when incidents unfortunately may happen. Okay, and then what about location? So a lot of times we're not really certain, as I said in that earlier question, do you know where your workers are at? So we're not often very certain where they're at and if they're safe. So anytime we can get that more clear data of exactly where that person is, maybe on a map, a real time knowing where they're at, maybe even we'll talk about ways to do that as well. But we think by understanding the location, you can certainly increase safety and increase also productivity. So understanding where and when and how those workers are at any given moment of the day. So one of the things we're going to focus on particularly is mobile workers. So we certainly know that there's a difference between people in a plant or in a fence line or people that work remotely outside of facilities or in remote areas. These workers may typically work alone. They could work in small groups. I have two pictures here of a pipeline and also maybe a small team that's been dispatched to work on an incident. Maybe it's a leak or some sort of maintenance on a pipeline here. A couple other situations may be a third shift where someone's working the overnight shift where they may be working in a skeleton crew of very few people. So again, how do we know that those workers are being protected? It could be, again, just someone just having to drive out to a remote facility and they may be working somewhere for the week. How do you know that they're being protected as well? So we talk about mobile workers we think are particularly vulnerable. So we did actually a survey when we were looking at this product launch a few months back. We took a poll of our current customer base and we took that opportunity to ask them those questions. And we really were looking for particular in that situation, mobile workers, people that may have workers that work remotely or mobile. And what kind of solutions do our customers in that area track? And so it was, like I said, conducted about 6 months ago. So this is kind of interesting pie chart. So you can see about almost a third say that they have a manual process. A manual process, maybe they just literally check in and call in maybe their manager at the end and beginning of each shift. 38% they have some sort of software service, so which is actually quite interesting. So that's probably up a lot higher than it was maybe say even 2-5 years ago. 36% though, surprisingly still said they don't do anything. They may have no tools in their toolbox to, or no SOPs in place to understand how to track their workers. So we found that very, very interesting as well. So the challenge of what do we do when we say doing nothing? So The challenge there is that there's no one around to actually hear or see an alarm. So if there was an event with a worker, an operator, or whomever it may be, they're working remotely, no one's around to hear them. And of course, again, no coverage for a man down event. So if that person was to go down, even if they have a man down accelerometer in their gas detector, there's no one around to hear it, right? So it doesn't really help them in that case. So that's sort of interesting. So doing nothing is not ideal, obviously. I put in a couple of different news articles, and you may even know some more that you've heard of. One was about 2 years ago in the Dakotas, where a person was working and working by himself, and we know that that person had an accident, but we don't know how long it was until the foreman actually got to him. So again, doing nothing. That person didn't even have a buddy system. Another example at the bottom, just a mine death. And again, not even knowing where that worker was particular in that instance. So there's definitely, this is a very topical subject. There are a lot of people looking to find ways to address this. And as again, our just limited poll, about 38% say that they're doing nothing at this point. So another third of people said that they do have a manual process. So that could be simply, like I said, they could be doing some sort of a phone call. Maybe they text their manager when they get to and from a job. Maybe there's some sort of electronic check-in process. But obviously with a manual process, it does require for that person to remember to do that, right? It's an extra task for them. Probably is pulling them away from their core job. So they may have a job to do, maybe deliveries or whatever they may have their task that day. They're obviously not they're not doing it when they're doing a manual check-in process. So again, also with a manual process, people have to be paying attention. So from a supervisor point of view, on the other end, you have to make sure that people are getting those check-ins and they're actually monitoring them and so forth. And what we find too, a lot of times with a check-in process like that, so if that happens over and over again, and maybe you have a team of people that are working remotely and you have a constant check-in, it could be even every hour check-in. Well, now you've got a supervisor that is constantly just probably doing nothing but just watching their workers check in and check out of throughout the day. So as we know, typically when that happens, it could be sort of where they get complacent, and it could even be where a false alarm could create some unnecessary responses. Maybe they do get maybe they haven't checked in, but they just they ran to lunch or whatever they may be. We know also no missed alarms could cost a life, right? And of course, it's not timely, right? So again, it's waiting for that check-in process to happen. So it's not in the moment. This was actual case, unfortunate in the States about a year ago, where we were contacted by a customer where they actually had a worker that was hanging by their leg for hours until his missed check-in was unnoticed or was noticed. So he did have a check-in process, but obviously wasn't able to do that. And so it wasn't until that check-in had lapsed and they finally discovered, we better go check on this operator and figure out what happened. So this was another sad incident. Again, it happens all too often. So another way would be as a buddy system, whereas working in a team of 2 or more people, where they have to go in and go out together and work together as a team. We know that's not typically very efficient, right? Now you've got a redundancy there with a second person. We also know all too well, if a hazard goes in for one, the buddy usually goes in and, if an incident happens, the buddy goes in after him or her, and now the hazards can impact both workers. So that happens all too frequently. And then sometimes, if you're working a longer shift or you're working the night shift, the buddy system, it might not be practical. You may not have the manpower or the number of employees there to kind of do some sort of redundant type of buddy system. So that's another kind of challenge with the buddy system. this was another incident. This happened in Florida. This happened about January of 2017, so just less than a year ago. So this was another incident where, again, we hear about this all the time, right? As I just mentioned, worker went in and he went in first to and didn't have any gas detection, was overcome by hazardous atmosphere, and he didn't come out. Second person, his buddy, went in after him to check in on him. Of course, he was overcome as well. The third person that went in after him was actually a firefighter that went in. And in this case, this gentleman was a younger guy, but he took off his SCBA because it didn't fit to go down the manhole. So he went in, just as we all do, to help out our brother and sister in our workplace, to take care of our buddies. And unfortunately, again, that person died as well. So three fatalities there in that instance in Florida. So let's just focus on positive now. How can we turn that around? So think about how we've evolved. And as I said, 5 years ago, a lot of this technology was a lot more archaic. It was probably just literally a buddy system, right? But we now are, as I said, trying to get into the moment and get information in real time so we can make decisions. So we think we've gone from an era of gas detection where you were just getting instrument alerts, perhaps moving into more real-time data locally. Now really getting into how can we get that information to our peers, to our buddies in the system, could be to even a manager. And then of course now real-time data remotely to a cloud. So, this is just a very recent, type of event. But we see this as a real trend in gas detection and other instrumentation as well. I think you'll start to see that, as you can see, with just people with phones and getting texts and real-time data for possibly anything you want with your apps and like that. Certainly, I think safety has traditionally been a little bit more lagged in this area. But I think we're starting to see, we'll start to tell a couple things that we've noticed and our customers have come to us with some concerns is, for one, it's really complicated to set up a system. And often there's a lot of infrastructure that has to go into it and some additional expense. So, we can make it easier for them and for you. That would really make it better, right? So make it simple. Reliability is key, right? So anytime you start to introduce technology, everyone tells us you got to make it simple, got to make it reliable, and you got to make it consistent. So that's really key there as well. And then what about making gas detectors fit for purpose, right? So you can introduce all this technology, but now if you've got a huge, almost like a brick that you have to carry around, it's really not, it's not something that workers will want to even use, right? So you want to make it so that it's something that people will want to wear, that will feel comfortable wearing, and that will not take it off or turn it off or do whatever, but it's something that you want to make it fit for purpose. We've also seen some of the challenges with it. Just recently, I had this customer, a story relayed to me about the unions and things like that, where they might think it's more of a big brother. That now with live monitoring, now knowing real-time readings and knowing where that worker is at, that could be seen as sort of big brother, watching their back. But again, you want to flip that around. But wouldn't you, as a manager or you as an operator, wouldn't you want to make sure that your safety is of most importance? If there is a hazard or something was to happen, that wouldn't you want to make sure that you're taken care of, and that help is on its way, right? So I think we could flip that around pretty easily. So we'll talk about some paths to live monitoring. I'll kind of get into some of the technical parts of it, if you will. But one of the ways that we're exploring is taking the instrument. In this case, we've got on the bottom left there our Ventus Pro, our personal gas detector. We're introducing what we call a concept of a gateway. A gateway is just a transmitter, a way to get information from the gas detector, then off to the cloud, or it could be even to a local server. But that's what we're focusing right now, is getting that information to the cloud, and we'll show you some more screenshots of what that looks like in a moment. So some ways you could do that is it could be Wi-Fi to an access point, so you could transmit that information through Wi-Fi. It could be through Bluetooth. Bluetooth, very common in most devices, in your phones and cars and all sorts of different places. But Bluetooth to a smart device to the cloud could be another way to get that live detection. You could have a cellular or SIM card in the instrument that could go direct to cloud, so you wouldn't actually need a gateway. That could be another way to do it as well. So just some different pathways to get that information to the cloud. So just to recap, so we've got gateways, access points, smart devices, and just direct to the cloud. So what about cloud-based live monitoring or live detection software? So the beauty behind this is that any type of software where you can get real-time information, you're gonna want and you're gonna need to see that status of the worker in real time, and you want to be able to see it from anywhere. So a beauty of a cloud solution is that you don't have to load any software. There's no other tools, and with our new iNet now, which we'll talk about here, which you see a screenshot of, that is actually tied into our iNet control dashboard. So it's just one other new tab we've introduced. So it's the same login if you've used any of our iNet control software in the past. It's just simply a second a tab that we've introduced. So we make it really easy with one login anywhere. So again, with live detection, right, what do you need to know? So the great thing about iNet now is that you can get real-time text and email alerts at any point for your workers. So if you're a supervisor or manager that you need to see the status of your workforce, the beauty of it is you don't have to log into a map and sit there and monitor and wait for check-ins and things like that. The great thing is that we can actually set you up in the beginning of the onboarding experience. We can set you up immediately so that you're getting text or email alerts, and we can actually customize. I'll show you in a moment what that looks like, but we can actually customize what kind of alerts you may want to get, and that can be changed at any point. So you don't have to sit in front of a computer and watch and monitor, see how people are doing. Great thing is if there is an alarm threshold that's exceeded that you want notifications on, we've got you. We've got you through text or emails. And there's also escalation persons as well available. So if you're not available, it'll then default to the next person on the escalation point. Again, what this allows you to do is, as I just said, you can now get that text or email alert, and you can go immediately and get help on its way, do whatever response protocol that you may have in your SOPs, get that help out there to help that worker. And of course, as I said, anytime you introduce technology, any type you want, if you think about even time you get a new phone, right? You want it to be easy to use, right? Make it very simple. I don't want to read a huge long manual. I just want to be able to turn it on and ready to go. So we try and have attained that with a cloud-based system. So this is an example of a map. I apologize, on this map, I have cut Australia off. Where did you go, Australia? You're going to be laughing right now. So I'm sorry for that, but you are on this map, but it didn't get placed, and primarily because I didn't put anyone there, but that was my bad. But you can see in this map, we have 6 different workers in the US, Europe, and Latin America. So just a quick, this is what the dashboard looks like with a cloud system that we've introduced called iNet now. So on the left, you can see a status of your workers. So as I said, you've got your 4 workers there. They're maybe part of your work team. And immediately, if you were to go log in, you'd get a quick snapshot, very simple, red, green, and yellow, to determine, sort of like a stoplight, determine universally, if those workers are okay, if they're not okay, if they're in an alarm situation, or what's happening. So this makes it very simple to log in and know immediately what's happening. You can see at the top, Mike O'Brien, he's gone into an alarm today at 9 a.m. And I'm going to put my glasses on, so I have to read this a little bit. But his alarm condition is a low oxygen, 18.9% oxygen. So we know immediately, right away, Mike pops to the top, and we know that he's in alarm condition. So we definitely want to click on that. We'll be able to, we can see exactly, get his GPS coordinates and send help. We can see the other two workers there, Lauren and Ryan underneath him, underneath Mike. They're in the green status, so we know that they're okay. They're again being monitored, and they're not in any alarm condition. And we know they're also using a radius in that instance. We also know just on the right, we can see the little check mark. There's no readings next to Lauren because we know that she's underneath any alarm threshold. So we know that she's great. She's doing just fine. Third down, you can see now with Ryan Peterson, you can see a little icon. And again, I don't have to even explain to you what that means. You guys can probably guess. It means Ryan's got his radius on the charger. And the great thing again is it's still working on the charger. We still know his status, but we know that in green, he's fine, right? Again, he hasn't exceeded any alarm thresholds. The three underneath the group there at the bottom. So TJ is in yellow. Today about 2:04 p.m. It looks like he probably left the site. Again, he was probably in part of that radius team there with Ryan and Lauren above him, probably in a network. And at some point, he took the radius and walked away, and we call him just a short-term loss. So we know that he probably took off. He maybe had to go on to do another job, and we know that through that little cloud slash there, that no longer being monitored. But we know when we last saw him. And then finally, the last two at the bottom are Jeff and Chaz. So they were last seen today at 12:18. They were wearing Ventus Pros. We can click and we can actually see the serial number then. But we can actually know on the status on the right there underneath that cloud icon, we see a little power button. So it actually means gray, means actually they've shut their instruments off. So they've probably gone, their shift probably ended at 12 o'clock, or maybe they took off for lunch, whatever the situation is, but we know that they're no longer being monitored. So again, as a supervisor, I can go click into my iNet Now live monitoring dashboard, and I can see the real-time status of everybody. And finally, I think another great idea, just to kind of point this out, is a picture, right? So you've got pictures of everybody you can upload here. So you've got a great way to immediately identify who that worker is. Again, we've preloaded these people into the system. That's part of the onboarding experience. You set these alerts up, you set up the people, and you set up the escalation persons as well. So that's kind of just a quick snapshot of what a live map would look like if you were to log in. And as I mentioned, we've got the ability to do real-time alerts. I'm going to show you here. I wanted to make sure that was the first slide. But on the left is a picture of actually what you get in an email. And so if I was to get an email from Mike O'Brien, he had a high alarm, and it was a 26.5 parts per million of H2S. So I would get an email. So I've been, say I'm Mike's supervisor, I get an alert. I want to know anytime there's been a high alarm. And so I get an email sent to me at 10:31 a.m. That he was in alarm condition. And what I would be able to do is click on that location. You see map it with like a hyperlink that would take me right to a map. It would take me right back to sort of up here, and I'd be able to go dive in right to a map and see where Mike's located at. I could also set up a text alert, and you can do combinations of this as well, but I may want to get a text alert for high alarms instead. Maybe that's quicker, maybe easier, maybe I get a jillion emails, so I want to get a text alert when there's any type of high alarm. So again, I could get that ideally through text, and you can see again the alert come through, and you can see the second text message actually shows you a map icon. So again, I don't need to go into that dashboard as a supervisor. I don't need to sit here and monitor at any point during the day. I could if maybe I'm having an office day and I want to have this map up and running. But say I'm out running around and I'm working in the field today as well. I just want to be able to know when my workers are safe or unsafe, and I want to get texts and emails alerted. So that's what that would look like. As I said too, this is very highly configurable. I love software, the fact that we can, with all of our software, everything's very customizable, configurable. You can really, figure out what is most important to you and how you want to get the information. So we do call it sort of a manage by exception. So again, no need to just stare at a map all day long and kind of monitor your workers. Again, you can, but again, if you want to be out and about doing your work, and you only want to get alarms on different things for different workers, you could do that. So we can do that through this this dashboard here, this is a way to configure the different alarms depending on if it's a high, low, panic, style, TWA, man down, and also that lost contact. So if you want to know when someone's left for the day, if they've gone away, you can also get those alerts or text messages as well. So those are something that you can configure, which I love the customization of that. And again, you can change it at any time. So in the beginning, you've set it up maybe to get all of the alerts. And then, you start to notice, I really don't need to get, a low alarms except for on oxygen. So let's just take those out. So you could customize that and change it at any point. And then again, what kind of information can we get as far as alerts? So there's a few other screenshots here I've kind of put here together for you. So again, at any point you can get information related to that worker. In this instance, we're using Dave Wagner, a good friend of mine in Pittsburgh. So we can see here that what site he was at, DW5, Dave Wagner 5, maybe we made up that location, but we can see in this map where he's at. We can understand what serial number he's using, when the alert occurred, what equipment group he's using. Maybe he's assigned to a certain equipment group. We can also see whether or not the alert has been cleared. I love that feature. Again, if you want to have the ability, again, as a supervisor to maintain whether or not you've acknowledged that alert and you've done something about it or something's happened as part of the practice for getting those alerts, you can do that. So that's something we call alert status. We can also see who's getting information or alerts about Dave. So it could be himself, it could be Scott Jubak, it could be a whole host of different people could be subscribed to that. So that's what sort of documentation of alerts looks like. So I think, again, just kind of going back to getting a few pictures of what this looks like, but some things you might want to consider if this at all intrigues you or if it's something that you'd maybe like to consider. So some questions I would have you think about would be, first of all, what applications do you have for gas detection? In particular, what type of gases do you need to monitor for? Are they confined space or leak detection or in-plant or remote monitoring, that type of thing? What are the applications? And do you feel confident that the gas detectors that you're using now or maybe are budgeting to use are fit for purpose? Are they fit for that application? There's variety out there to look at, so make sure that you're aware, what applications you're using and what things to look for. What about connectivity? As I said, there's a lot different ways to get to the cloud and to get that real-time information. So I mentioned earlier, there's gateways, there's Wi-Fi, there's cell connections, there's straight cell from the detector to the cloud. So understanding the connectivity, you might actually be in a remote environment. That never happens in Australia. That's a joke, right? I've been out there twice in the last 3 months, and certainly know that there are times when a phone isn't going to work. You're going to need maybe a satellite, or you're just going to know certain areas you're not going to have connectivity, right? So just understanding the connectivity needs that you have in your workforce is really important, so you understand what is best for you. And understanding who wants to get the information, right? So that's part of something that we do. It's very important as part of the scoping process, and I'm part of an applications team. We make sure that we work with you and your team to understand what alerts you want to get. As I mentioned, there's a lot of ways you can customize those alerts, get that information to you, and perhaps other people on the team. So you might want to think about that, and that's something that we would do, as I said, part of the scoping process. And how does it help you manage your gas detection? So are you looking for increased productivity? Are you looking for, when are my workers getting to work? When are they leaving? Are they using their gas detectors throughout the day? That's really important. I was just at a facility not long ago, and they didn't have their gas detector on, and we had a heart-to-heart about why that was, and understanding really about how that worker was supposed to be using their gas detector. So it's really important that you think about all these criteria. And then finally, of course, is support. Anytime you implement anything new, Obviously, change is never easy. Change is sometimes difficult in the beginning, but with technology, and I think with younger generations coming on, people are more comfortable with technology, and they certainly see technology as as something that is just part of their life rather than something that they would need to battle or not be in favor of. So I think then understanding what support that you could get from your management and what support that you need from your gas detection partner and from your safety partner, someone like Industrial Scientific partnered with AirMed as well. So the support that we can offer in any of this type of experience and onboarding and throughout the application process, that we want to be there for you and make sure that it's successful for you. So, in kind of a quick summary, we understand today, as I mentioned, technology is evolving very fast and furious. I think every time we turn around, there's a new home product, there's new home security, there's an app for everything nowadays, right? So we know that technology is evolving rapidly. We want to make sure that we're finding ways to make technology easy to use, as I said, and also really reliable. So this is something that, you don't want it to be a headache, you want it to be reliable. And of course, what you do with that data and what you can do with it, obviously making it super easy to manage and have that data at your fingertips. We think, and certainly in my role, I've been here almost 2 years, I'm very excited to say that technologies, even in the 22 months I've been on board with Industrial Scientific, it's crazy great how exciting technology is rapidly changing. We've introduced 2 new platform products in the last 18 months with introduction of the Ventus Pro and then the Radius area monitor. So with those as our platform product, we see a lot of good things happening with technology. And we think introducing the software piece that we've just talked about, iNet now, talking about different ways to get that information through a gateway, could be, like as I said, through a cell phone right now, could be later through a different gateway. But we think that this is just a tip of the iceberg. And another reason for that, again, is it's becoming more affordable. People are seeing that technology is another tool in the toolbox, and it gives that information to help achieve their safety goals and to get that information that they need to do something. And, again, consider if you look back at that survey I showed in the earlier presentation, if you're in that do nothing or manual process category, it might be an opportunity now with technology at your fingertips to start looking at ways you can change that. There are different paths out there. Certainly take a look at, I hope you take a look at what we have to offer. And we really think that it's important to never compromise on gas detection. Again, understanding what's happening in the moment and making sure that your gas detector, whatever you choose, works all the time. And we hope that you never have to use it in that moment. But when that moment happens, when it's a life or death decision, and if there is something happen, we want to make sure that you have confidence in your gas detection program and that you understand that the people that have manufactured the product and support the product have your back, hands down. And again, that's why we talk about being in the moment and achieving our goal of ending death in the workplace. We know it's not gas detection alone. We realize that, but we really feel that we can help achieve that through technology. So just taking a look at seeing what technology out there, it's never a bad thing to do. Kind of take stock, and certainly now for towards Q3 into Q4 of this year, looking at ways we can achieve that for your budget goals next year as well. That's just a quick summary, and you can see a live demonstration. I'd be happy to schedule a WebEx with you with the AirMet.
AirMet Scientific has represented the industrial scientific product range in Australia for over 15 years now. So if you'd like any further information, please feel free to contact us. And finally, thanks, Lisa, for your time today. It was very informative and interesting presentation. Thanks very much.